Welcome to another episode of Sanford Says. My name is Lisa Holder, Communications Officer for the City of Sanford. And today we have two very special guests with us. Shauna Lloyd is a partnership specialist with the United States Census, and Tony Matthews is the volunteer coordinator for the 2020 Census Response Team, Planning and Development Division for Seminole County. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you wouldn't guess, today's topic is the 2020 census. We are at the final stage, the last leg of this very, very crucial and an important endeavor in the United States of America. And so we have Shauna here. She took some time out of her extremely busy day, and Tony, to talk with us about the census in general and what we can do in these last few days here. So Shauna, would you like to just share with our listeners the 2020 census in an overview?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. It's great to be here with you in the city of Sanford. And the census is really important to each and every one of us, and it's important to our community because it does several things. The count from the census influences how $675 billion worth of federal funding is distributed every year. This one count will last us for the next decade. So programs such as Head Start, Pell Grants, housing, Section 8, emergency services, unemployment insurance, they're all hospitals, schools. These are things that touch each and every one of us. And all of those dollars are dictated by census population. So we want to make sure that everyone in our community is counted to ensure that our communities are receiving the funding for these different programs adequately. The other thing that's affected by the census is our representation. The apportionment is determined by our census population. We always hear that, Florida is one of the fastest growing states. In 2010, we gained 2 additional seats in the House of Representatives based on our increased population. That's significant.
Right.
That's how we get things done, right? That's
Yeah.
how we get legislation through. That's how the state of Florida decides and gets things that we need. So that's important to each and every one of us. So those are the real reasons. If we were to boil it down to 2 things, it's all about the money and the power. And that's what makes the census so important.
Right, and I can only imagine if we gained 2 seats in 2010, Florida has been busting at the seams with people coming here to live now, and so I can only imagine what the results are for
Exactly.
that for 2020, and it's just critical, as you said. And so, Tony, you want to share some of our initiatives or local? Now, I know we had the county's team, the Complete Count Committee, that there was at least 25 members, and we had an action plan and all of that. All of the 7 cities were responsible for the action plan. I was participating on behalf of Sanford, and so we've worked together this last year quite closely. And so do you want to share sort of like where we're at now and your wealth of knowledge in this area, and it would be great for the listeners to hear where it stands locally here.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, and just to echo what Sean had said, I really appreciate you doing this. I think it's a great idea. I know you've done at least one other podcast on the 2020 census. You sent that to me. I thought it was very well done. And and let me give you a little background quickly to move into my comments. But in 2009, I was full-time at Seminole County in Planning and Development. And the Board of County Commissioners had this idea about doing what we call a complete count committee, and I think that originated with the Census Bureau. They recommend local governments create these volunteer committees. So the board said, yeah, let's do that. And so I ended up being the coordinator for the 24, I think we had 24, 25 members back then in 2010. And so in 2019, when we're getting ready for the 2020 census, the county asked me if I would consider being the coordinator for this one. And so I said, certainly, be more than happy to do it. And so in 2019, the county commissioners created their second complete count committee, and we had started out with 25 members. And the committee, their involvement started around August of 2019, and that concluded in July of this year, July 31st. In other words, that was like the end of the service for what they did. Right. They created an action plan, as you mentioned. It was very well done, and the committee did a lot to promote the census. And then when the the virus came along and ended up, the Census Bureau had to continue the deadline from July to October at that time to make sure that everyone was counted, and that was all again in response to the COVID-19 virus. That the Board of County Commissioners decided that they wanted to create a team, a response team, and they asked me to also coordinate that, which is what I'm doing. And then I would say that today I'm speaking on behalf of Seminole County, of course, but I'm also representing the response team. And as you mentioned, as with the Complete Count Committee, the response team has members from each of the cities, including yourself. So to just quickly summarize what we do, we have an aim, and our aim is to achieve as much as we can a complete and accurate population count, and we do that by census awareness through emails, all type of digital platforms. We've also done in the past community events, so newsletters and that sort of thing, and obviously what we're doing today. And with the goal is to what I would call maximize the response rate, because the higher your response rate, the more likely you put yourself in a position to receive that federal and state dollars that Shauna referred to. So, reaching out with getting a complete and accurate count and maximizing that response rate. And then I would make one comment I think is appropriate here, is that of all the 69 counties in Florida, as of Monday, Seminole County had the highest response rate of all 69 counties. And so I'm very pleased to see that happening. And I'm thinking that, or anticipating that once the census is over, which looks like now the date is going to be September 30, that the census takers, which are out in the community now knocking on doors, once you take the response rate we have now and add the census taker to that, then that's really going to increase our response rate. So, my role has been to promote the census awareness, to assist the response team, encourage them to move forward, and so I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that that's such a huge accomplishment. I think we just kind of glossed that over, but you're saying that Seminole County is #1 in the state of Florida in response rates as we speak. And so think about that. We're talking about, these other huge counties,
right.
Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, nothing against them, but I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. And so I wonder if that speaks to people, the citizenry, actually, being aware enough that or educated enough that the census really matters. Because if you think about it, you talk about for the next 10 years, this funding is going to be based on this response rates. These are 10-year-olds. If you look at a 10-year-old and then compare that to a 20-year-old, you could see that's a long time.
And it's
10 years.
It's actually the time that we most use a lot of the services that we're talking about, right? We're driving on our roads and highways. They're born in a hospital. They're going to go to an elementary school. They may utilize Head Start. They'll graduate and want a Pell Grant. So these are all school lunch programs are also affected by it. So when you look at a child, you're right, over that 10-year span, so many of these things are things that we want them to utilize, after school programs. All of those are programs that we want them to utilize, and it's all determined by census funding, by census count.
Yes, yeah. You were going to say something,
Well,
Tony?
and I would say, Lisa, that as far as the response rate, I think it's what I'd call a team effort. In other words, you have the work of the Complete Count Committee, which of course now is done, but you have the response team, which is still active today. Then you have the citizenry that you mentioned, and I think all of that together is really, I think the response, that's why the response rate is so high right now out of 69 counties, and you mentioned some of those there.
Yeah.
And so we should know pretty soon now, early next month, what the final response would be.
Right.
And so I'm looking forward to seeing that, because one thing I would add, in 2010, our participation rate, which was the total count, ended up to be 77%. That was greater than the nation and greater than the state of Florida, higher percentage. And so I'm looking this time, anticipating we're going to be in the 80 percentile somewhere. I'm not willing to put a number on it or a
Right.
percent. That's why I
Yes.
use the word maximize.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but I think it's going to be in the 80s, and because I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about it, this is the first time you could ever respond online with the
Right.
census, or you can
Yeah.
make a phone call, and then the traditional questionnaire, the paper form.
Right. And
So you had all those options.
yeah, and I was going to mention that. I mean, it's been being the person that's promoting this to go out there, respond, do that for the city of Sanford. There's several ways. Respond today. You could do that by phone, online.
Yes.
Social media has been huge in getting the message out for a communicator for a municipality. So, and I'd also like to mention that the census has been so helpful. Your team has been here side by side with us through this entire process, and so making sure that we have everything we need, the tools we need, the information we need to share, so that the public is aware about what they are actually being asked to do. So it's been a great experience, and here at City Hall, we have hosted the enumerators and a lot of
Yes.
trainings at City Hall for the people that are out there working for the census, and so it's been a great experience in my view, and for such a great cause, the United States Census.
Absolutely. And I think it takes that sort of partnership, the partnership with the Census Bureau, with our local governments, with all of our local partners, small businesses, education, unique populations. I mean, there are so many community leaders that have stepped up in the city of Sanford to really help us get this message out, that I think that says a lot about the community and the people within the community, that they're working so hard to make sure that every person knows why this is so important and why it is that we need to complete it.
Yes.
So I think it speaks a lot to, our community members and the commitment of local government to make sure that they are actively promoting it, and the Complete Count Committee. It takes a lot of people to get
Yeah.
it done.
There's methods
So-
to it, of
Oh,
course.
yes, definitely method to the madness.
So I'm looking at so shape our future, start here. So
That's right.
and then the census website, we haven't mentioned that in case there's
yes.
a person out there that has not responded yet. It's 2020census.gov. I think I've said that a million times on our, since March or something, but 2020census.gov, shape our future. It's our future. It's
That's
not
right.
just yours or mine.
Yep.
We're all citizens, and we will all benefit from everyone responding to the census, correct?
That is correct.
And we're in the last days now. We are in the home stretch, I think you were calling it, Tony.
About a week, right?
A week. And so any last words of encouragement for people that they like to procrastinate or something?
Right,
I mean, can you
right.
still reply online?
You can still reply online. You can reply on the telephone. If an enumerator comes to your door, you can talk with them and complete it. We just want to encourage everyone to make sure that they have completed their own form, and reach out to your circle of influence. Reach out to your family members and ask, have you completed your form? Your friends and family that we talk to every day. Encourage them. If you're on a virtual call with another group, a social group of yours, just throw the question out there. Hey, did all of you fill out your census form? So we want to make sure that people are really touching the people within their circle of influence.
Right. All right. And so 2020 is almost at an end here, and if you can believe it or not. And so this won't happen again for another 10 years. So get to it. Get to that phone. Get on your computer. I feel like I'm doing a pledge drive, but I really think it's important. We all know, after all of these important figures
Yes.
that you're sharing, billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars,
You said.
675 billion. It comes out to about $7 trillion across the decade.
Yes.
Significant funds.
Surely. So is there any last words,
Well,
Tony?
Sean, you mentioned the website. I would also mention that Seminole County has a website. If you just go to our main homepage, which is seminolecountyfl.gov, and there's a spot there where you can type in the word census. That'll take you to the website. And part of my job is to keep that website up to date. So there's a ton of information in there. There's information about like what are known as barriers for those who, for some reason, are fearful of responding to the census because they don't know what will happen to their personal information. I keep the response rates up to date there. There's just a lot of additional links that you can go to. You can see videos. And the other thing I would just touch on, kind of what Shauna said, is that I think now with the virus hitting us all, At least I want to elevate the message because our schools, the medical profession, housing, all of these have been hit, and I would say in a drastic form. And we're all aware of those who've lost their jobs, for example, or they're having issues with paying the rent and housing. So I think it's more important maybe than it has been.
Yes.
In recent decades with the census, that we try to have as much of that federal and state money coming to us to assist our community as possible.
Certainly,
Yeah.
certainly.
And I'll throw in there too, we do want to share for anyone who has not completed it, we like to say it's safe, easy, and secure. It's easy because it's only 10 questions per person in the household. You'll buzz through them in less than 10 minutes. We also want people to know that it's secure. We do store the information. It is confidentially held for 74 years. We also do not share it with any other governmental agency. So your information is private. So we do want anyone who has not completed it or is concerned to know that their information is safe and secure with the Census Bureau.
And so, Shauna, when do we find out the final results? Doesn't it have to go to the president?
Yes.
And he releases it? So can you share a little bit about
Absolutely. So we do report the aggregate numbers. And when I say aggregate, we're talking about a total number. So it's never about Shauna Lloyd at 123 Main Street. What we're reporting is that in this area, which is a census tract, there are this many thousands of people. This is their racial identification. This is their age. That's all the information we're sharing. So you never have to be concerned about it being your personal information. It's always in the large group. That's how we're reporting it. And so those numbers are going to be publicly available on April 1st of 2021, which is Census Day. So they will be available. Businesses use those numbers to determine where to open new spots, things like food stores. When people talk about living in a food desert, that's important. Businesses look to see, where is my customer base? Where should I open these things? When companies talk about headquarters, they use these numbers. So these numbers are vital to our community in so many ways. Wonderful. So we just want people to know that it is really important and to do your part to make your community better by answering the census.
Yes, and I think that's a great line to end on there. Tony, last words? Just thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you personally. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lisa. And I think just it's not too late. So you have, it's 7 days if you include today. So I would say if anyone's considering responding and have not, I would so much encourage you to do that because it will make a big difference. And so that would be
All
like
right.
my final and big message.
Yes, respond today. Website again, 2020census.gov. Thank you both, Shauna Lloyd. What a pleasure. Partnership Specialist, the Census, U.S. Census, and Tony Matthews, Volunteer Coordinator, 2020 Census Response Team. Thank you again for being here today. And thank you for listening to Sanford Says. This is Lisa Holder, Communications Officer for the City of Sanford. You could find this podcast wherever you subscribe to your podcasts. Also on the city website at sanfordfl.gov/podcast. Thank you. Be safe out there. Stay well. Until next time. Bye.